A man's worth isn't measured by the suit he wears, but by the power he wields. When Marcus Thorne, the billionaire CEO of Helios Aerospace, boarded Stratosphere Flight 722 in a simple tracksuit, the flight crew saw a problem. They saw someone who didn't belong in first class, seat 1A. They saw a target. When a wealthy white passenger demanded his seat, the crew chose to humiliate Marcus, threatening him with security. They had no idea they weren't just making a mistake. They were ending their careers. Because Marcus Thorne didn't just fly on planes, he was in the process of buying the entire airline. And the A-list executive who started the fight? His life was about to be dismantled too. The hum of the engines at JFK's Terminal 4 was a familiar lullaby to Marcus Thorne. At 42, he was the sole founder, owner, and CEO of Helios Aerospace, a $90 billion giant that designed the advanced avionics and guidance systems used by nearly every major manufacturer, from Boeing to Airbus. He was a phantom in the industry, rarely photographed, intensely private, and relentlessly brilliant. He had built his empire from a Silicon Valley garage, and his name was whispered with the same reverence as names like Musk or Bezos, though he actively avoided their spotlight. Today, he wasn't flying his Gulfstream G700. He was flying commercial. He was in the final, agonizing stages of a $4.5 billion acquisition of Stratosphere Airlines, a legacy carrier struggling to compete with the giants like Delta and American. The deal was secret, set to be announced on Monday. Marcus was flying incognito, no suit, no entourage. He wore a simple, dark grey Loro Piana tracksuit, a $2,000 garment that looked like simple athleisure to the untrained eye, and a plain black Patek Philippe watch. He wanted to see the airline he was about to buy from the perspective of a regular passenger. He was in seat 1A, the flagship seat on their A321neo. He had just settled in, reviewing sensor data on his encrypted tablet, when the disruption began. It started with the flight attendant. Her name tag read Brenda. She was a senior crew member, with a helmet of blonde hair and a smile that was more of a baring of teeth. She had eyed Marcus with suspicion the moment he boarded. She'd brusquely taken his coat, while she'd fawned over the elderly couple in 2C and 2D. "Sir," she said, her voice sharp, "I'll need to see your boarding pass again." Marcus looked up, not breaking his calm. "Is there a problem?" "This is our premium first-class cabin. I just need to verify your seat." She hadn't asked the woman in 1B. She hadn't asked anyone else. Marcus held up his phone. Brenda scanned it, her lips tightening when it beeped green. Verified. She stalked off without a thank you. Marcus sighed. It was an old, tired story. He was used to being the only black man in the boardroom, the club, the first-class cabin. It was the tax he paid for existing in white spaces. 5 minutes later, the real trouble arrived. A man in his late 50s, florid-faced and loud, stormed into the cabin, dressed in a rumpled, expensive suit. He was gesticulating to another passenger, loudly complaining about a call. He stopped dead when he saw Marcus in 1A. He flagged Brenda down instantly. "Brenda, darling," he boomed, "what is this? You know 1A is my seat." Brenda's demeanor flipped instantly. She lit up, her smile suddenly genuine. "Mr. Caldwell, it is so good to see you. I told them to block it for you, but the system must have glitched." Mr. Arthur Caldwell, a senior vice president at Wells Fargo, glared at Marcus. "Well, there's a problem, and he's in my seat." Marcus didn't even look up from his tablet. "This is seat 1A. My boarding pass says 1A. I'm not moving." Brenda stepped forward, placing a hand on the armrest of Marcus's seat, an invasion of his space. "Sir," she said, her voice dripping with false patience, "Mr. Caldwell is one of our most valued platinum elite flyers. He sits here every Friday. There's clearly been a mix-up." "There's no mix-up on my end," Marcus said, his voice quiet but firm. "My ticket was purchased and confirmed," Caldwell scoffed, loudly enough for the whole cabin to hear. "How did a guy in a sweatsuit even get a ticket for 1A? Did you use your whole tax refund on it, buddy?" The cabin fell silent. A few people snickered. The woman in 1B, a young professional, visibly cringed and buried her face in a magazine. Marcus slowly powered down his tablet and placed it in his bag. He met Brenda's gaze. "Are you going to honor my ticket, or are you going to discriminate against me based on this man's preference?" Brenda's face hardened. The mask of customer service fell away, revealing a cold fury. "Sir, I don't appreciate your tone. You are in a seat that was reserved for a priority passenger. I'm going to have to ask you to move to the main cabin." "I am not moving," Marcus stated flatly. "He's not moving," Caldwell sneered. "Typical. Probably looking for a payout. Brenda, just get security. Get this bum out of here so we can take off." Brenda nodded, her eyes flashing with a sense of righteous power. "I'll be right back," she said, turning to Marcus. "You are delaying this flight. If you don't move, you will be removed." She turned and marched toward the cockpit to fetch the purser, leaving Marcus alone in a cabin full of hostile or indifferent stares. He didn't move. He simply steepled his fingers, his expression unreadable, and waited. The storm was here. The purser, a man named Jeffrey, arrived a moment later. He was tall, thin, and carried an air of frazzled authority. Brenda was at his elbow, whispering animatedly. "Sir," Jeffrey began, adjusting his tie. He avoided eye contact with Marcus, speaking to a point just over his shoulder. "We have a delicate situation." "There is no situation," Marcus replied, his voice still low, but now carrying a distinct edge of command. "I am in my assigned seat, 1A. This man, Mr. Caldwell, is demanding my seat. Your flight attendant, Brenda, is supporting him and has threatened to have me removed." Jeffrey sighed, clearly intimidated by Caldwell. "Sir, Mr. Caldwell he's a concierge key member. He flies this route multiple times a week. The airline does make special accommodations." "Accommodations are one thing," Marcus said. "Kicking a confirmed, ticketed passenger out of his seat is another. Is it the policy of Stratosphere Airlines to remove black passengers for white passengers on request?" Jeffrey paled. "Now, sir, let's not make this about race." "You made it about race the moment you asked me to move instead of telling him to find his assigned seat," Marcus countered. "What seat is he assigned?" Brenda chimed in. "He's in 3B, but it's a middle seat. It's unacceptable. This man," she jabbed a finger at Marcus, "can easily move. We have a seat in Economy Plus for him." "A downgrade," Marcus said, a mirthless smile touching his lips. "You want to move me from a $1,800 first-class lie-flat seat to a $300 middle seat in economy. And what compensation are you offering for this customer service?" "We can offer you a $200 travel voucher," Jeffrey said quickly, as if this were a generous solution. The sheer audacity of it almost made Marcus laugh. A $200 voucher to give up his legal, paid-for seat and accept public humiliation. "The answer is no," Marcus said. Caldwell threw his hands up. "This is ridiculous. I am a senior VP at Wells Fargo. I manage a $10 billion portfolio. I don't have time for this. Brenda, Jeffrey, get him out. I'll call Robert Castillo myself. He's a personal friend." The mention of the airline's CEO, Robert Castillo, was the magic word. Jeffrey's spine snapped straight. He looked at Marcus with newfound, albeit false, resolve. "Sir, you are now in violation of federal air transport regulations. You are failing to comply with the instructions of a flight crew. If you do not gather your belongings and move to the assigned economy seat, We will have you removed from the aircraft by law enforcement." This was the final escalation, the point of no return. The entire cabin was now fully engaged. A young man in 3D, a tech blogger, was surreptitiously filming the entire exchange on his phone. An older woman in 2C, who had been beaming at Caldwell earlier, hissed, "Just move, for goodness sake. You're holding us all up." Marcus Thorne looked at Brenda, then at Jeffrey. He saw their weakness, their prejudice, their lazy deference to the man who shouted the loudest and had the right skin color. "So that's your final decision?" Marcus asked. "You are going to call security?" "Yes," Brenda snapped, crossing her arms. "You've left us no choice." "Very well," Marcus said. He slowly, deliberately, reached into his bag. Brenda and Jeffrey flinched, as if expecting a weapon. Marcus retrieved his phone. "You are making a grave mistake," he said, unlocking the screen. "You've invoked the CEO's name. You've threatened me with federal officers. You've humiliated me. All for him." He nodded at Caldwell, who was preening. "Last chance, sir," Jeffrey said, his hand already on the cabin intercom to call the gate agent for security. "No," Marcus said. "This is your last chance, both of you. Tell me your full names." Jeffrey scoffed. "Jeffrey Miller. And this is Brenda Lansing. It will be in our report. The report you will be the subject of." Jeffrey Miller. "Brenda Lansing," Marcus repeated, typing the names into a new note on his phone. "Thank you." He pressed a single number on his speed dial. He didn't call Robert Castillo. He called his own chief operating officer, David Chen. David picked up on the first ring. "David," Marcus said, his voice now a cold, clear instrument of power. "Are you with Maria?" Maria was his general counsel. "Good. I'm on Stratosphere Flight 722 at JFK. We have a problem. I'm in seat 1A. The crew, a Brenda Lansing and a Jeffrey Miller, are attempting to forcibly remove me from the flight. They are trying to give my paid seat to another passenger, an Arthur Caldwell, and are threatening me with security." He paused, listening. "No, I'm not moving. I want you to call Robert Castillo, right now. Tell him Marcus Thorne is on his plane. Tell him to look up the Helios acquisition file. And tell him that if I am not given a public apology by the captain, and if these three individuals, Caldwell, Lansing, and Miller, are not dealt with, I am invoking the material adverse change clause. The deal is dead." Jeffrey and Brenda stared, confused. The name Marcus Thorne meant nothing to them. Helios meant nothing. Caldwell, however, looked like he'd been slapped. "Helios? Helios Aerospace." Marcus met his gaze. "The same." Caldwell's florid face went a ghostly white. He worked for a bank. He knew that name. He knew Helios was a titan, a prime contractor for the Department of Defense. Before Jeffrey could process this, the intercom from the cockpit crackled. It was the captain. "Jeffrey, Brenda, report to the cockpit. Now." The captain's voice was not calm. It was thunderous. Brenda and Jeffrey exchanged a panicked look. The power dynamic in the cabin had just shifted, violently and completely, and they had no idea why. They scrambled toward the cockpit, leaving a suddenly very sober Arthur Caldwell standing alone in the aisle, staring at the man in the tracksuit who had just, with a single phone call, set the entire airline on fire. The silence in the first-class cabin was absolute. It was thick, heavy, and terrifying. The passengers who had been sneering at Marcus moments before were now studying their armrests with intense interest. The tech blogger in 3D had his phone held up much more openly now. Arthur Caldwell was sweating, his eyes darting between Marcus and the cockpit door. Marcus simply sat, his hands resting on his knees. He was the picture of calm, an island of stillness in the hurricane he had unleashed. Inside the cockpit, Captain Davies, a 30-year veteran, had his headset slammed on the console. He was listening to the head of flight operations, who was screaming so loudly the captain had to hold the earpiece away from his head. "I don't care!" the operations chief roared. "The call came from Castillo's office. The man in 1A is Marcus Thorne. Do you know who that is, Davies? He's not a passenger. He is the airline, or he's about to be. He's buying the whole damn company. You get those two idiots out of my sight, and you fix this, or you can fly this plane directly to the boneyard, because we'll all be out of a job." Captain Davies slammed the phone down. He turned to Brenda and Geoffrey, who were huddled by the cockpit door. His face was purple with rage. "Do you have any idea what you have just done?" he whispered, his voice shaking with a fury that was far more terrifying than a shout. "Captain," Brenda stammered, "the passenger was non-compliant. He was aggressive, and Mr. Caldwell is nothing," Davies roared, finally losing his composure. "The man in 1A is Marcus Thorne, CEO of Helios Aerospace, the company that is finalizing its purchase of this entire airline on Monday. You didn't just insult a passenger. You just spat in the face of your new boss. You just threatened to have your owner arrested." The blood drained from Brenda's face. She physically sagged, grabbing the doorframe for support. No, that's not possible. He was in a tracksuit." Geoffrey just stared, his mind doing the math. The phone call, the talk of a deal, the immediate, panicked response from corporate. It was all true. He had just threatened a billionaire. He had just destroyed his 25-year career. "Get out," Davies seethed. "Get off my flight deck. Get your bags. You are relieved of duty. Effective immediately." "Captain, please," Geoffrey begged, tears welling in his eyes. "It was a misunderstanding. Get out!" The two of them stumbled back into the cabin, their faces ashen. The passengers saw their expressions and knew something catastrophic had occurred. Captain Davies emerged a second later. He was composing himself, buttoning his uniform jacket, but his eyes were still burning. He walked directly to seat 1A and stood in the aisle. "Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice loud and clear for the whole cabin to hear. "I am Captain Davies. On behalf of Stratosphere Airlines, and from myself personally, I offer you my deepest, most profound apologies for the utterly unprofessional and discriminatory treatment you have received from my crew." Marcus met his gaze. "Captain, Ms. Lansing and Mr. Miller have been relieved of their duties on this flight," Davies continued. "Their behavior was inexcusable and is not representative of this airline's values." Brenda, who was standing by the galley, let out a small, strangled sob. "And you, sir," Davies said, turning to Arthur Caldwell, who looked like he was about to be physically ill. "You instigated this disturbance. You made false claims to a seat that was not yours, and you encouraged the crew to take discriminatory action." "Now wait a second," Caldwell sputtered, his bravado returning weakly. "I am a valued customer." "You were a valued customer, Mr. Caldwell," Davies said, his voice like ice. "Due to your disruptive and aggressive behavior, and your role in harassing another passenger, you are being removed from this flight. Please collect your belongings." "You can't do this," Caldwell shouted. "I'll call Robert. I'll have your job." "Sir," a new voice said. Two airport police officers, the very ones Brenda had intended to call for Marcus, were now standing at the front of the cabin. "Please come with us. You can make your calls from the terminal." The karma was so swift, so precise, it was poetic. The entire cabin watched in stunned silence as Arthur Caldwell, the high-flying Wells Fargo executive, was unceremoniously escorted off the plane like a common criminal. As he passed Marcus's seat, he stopped, his face contorted with hate. You did this." Marcus looked up at him, his expression one of profound disappointment. "You did this to yourself, Arthur. You assumed I was nothing. You were wrong. Caldwell was marched down the jet bridge. The cabin door hissed shut. Captain Davies turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Thorne, we will need to deplane all passengers and find a new flight crew. This will cause a significant delay. My apologies. We can, of course, move you to—" "Don't," Marcus said, holding up a hand. "Don't bother. I'm not flying this airline today." He stood up and gathered his single bag. "Captain, you handled that with professionalism. I appreciate it. But the damage is done." "Sir, please," Davies said, "don't let this kill the deal. This company needs this. We need this." Marcus paused at the cabin door. "This isn't about 2 employees, Captain. This is about a culture that allowed this to happen. A culture that prioritizes a loud, entitled man over a quiet, paying customer. A culture that sees a black man in a tracksuit as a threat. That's what I have to decide if I want to buy." He turned to the rest of the cabin. "My apologies to the rest of you for the delay. Your problem isn't with me. It's with the culture of exclusion Stratosphere Airlines has fostered. Have a safe flight." He walked off the plane, leaving a trail of absolute devastation in his wake. As he entered the jet bridge, he saw Brenda and Jeffrey, huddled with their rollerboards, being spoken to by a grim-faced gate supervisor. Their airline IDs were being cut from their lanyards with a pair of scissors. Brenda looked up and saw him. Her face, a mask of tears and running mascara, was a portrait of pure, unadulterated shock. She had kicked a man out of a seat, and in return, he had kicked her out of her life. Marcus didn't go home. He went straight to the Stratosphere Admirals Club. He didn't enter the main area. He was escorted to a private flagship conference room reserved for emergencies. Within 20 minutes, the room was a war zone. His COO, David Chen, and his general counsel, Maria Flores, were already there, patched in via a secure video link. Robert Castillo, the CEO of Stratosphere, was on a separate screen, his face a ghostly grey. Marcus, I don't know what to say," Castillo stammered. "It's horrifying, it's just—" "Save it, Robert," Marcus cut in, his voice cold. "Let's talk facts. Your stock is already down 12% in after-hours trading. That's, let's see, about 200 million in value erased. Why? Because the young man in 3D, a blogger named Tech Guy Tom, has been live streaming the entire event. The video of your crew, of Arthur Caldwell, and of me being threatened with police has 1.5 million views. In the last hour." Maria Flores spoke, her voice precise. "Robert, as of 30 minutes ago, Helios Aerospace has delivered a notice to your board. We are officially pausing the acquisition, citing the material adverse change clause. The incident on Flight 732 is a clear demonstration of a catastrophic cultural failure within your service chain, which represents a significant, previously undisclosed liability to your brand." "Liability?" Castillo yelped. "Maria, it was 2 rogue employees. They've been fired, terminated, for cause. What more do you want?" "What do I want?" Marcus said, leaning into the camera. "I want to know why your senior crew felt empowered to do that. I want to know why your purser's first instinct was to placate the loud white man and downgrade the black one. This isn't a rogue employee problem, Robert. This is cancer. You don't just cut out a tumor. You have to poison the whole system to kill it. And frankly, I'm not sure I want to pay $4.05 billion for a patient this sick." Castillo was sweating profusely. "Marcus, please, we can fix this. The acquisition, it's our only way out. We're leveraged to the hilt. If this deal dies, Stratosphere files for Chapter 11. We're done. 10,000 jobs, gone. 10,000 jobs, Marcus repeated. You should have thought of that before you let your company rot from the inside. You built a culture where an Arthur Caldwell is king and a Marcus Thorne is a bum. Well, the bum is at your gate, Robert, and he's deciding whether to burn the castle down or buy it for parts. There was a long, agonizing silence. What's your price, Marcus? Castillo whispered, defeated. My price, Marcus said, is a renegotiation. The brand is toxic. It'll take me $1 billion just in rebranding and retraining to fix the hole your people dug today. The new offer is $3.2 billion, not a penny more, and I want your resignation, effective on closing. Castillo looked like he'd been shot, but he knew he had no choice. The board would crucify him to save the company. Done, he croaked. Good, Marcus said. Now, about the other loose ends. Brenda Lansing and Jeffrey Miller, Maria said, pulling up their files. Terminated. Miller has 25 years of service. He loses his pension vesting. Lansing has 18 years. Same. And Arthur Caldwell, Marcus said, his eyes narrowing. Ah, David Chen said, a predatory smile on his face. I've already been on the phone with the CEO of Wells Fargo, Charles Scharf. The video is damaging. Caldwell screaming, I am a senior VP at Wells Fargo, while being racist on a hot mic is not good for their brand, especially given their history. And? Marcus asked. And, David said, they've just released a public statement. Arthur Caldwell has been suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending a full investigation. Their internal source says he's being terminated with cause. He'll lose over $8 million in unvested options and deferred compensation. He's ruined. Marcus nodded slowly. The first wave of karma had struck. It was fast and brutal, but it wasn't enough. Firing was easy. It didn't fix the problem. As the meeting was wrapping up, there was a knock on the conference room door. A nervous lounge attendant peeked in. Mr. Thorne, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's a young woman here, a flight attendant. She says she was on flight 722. Her name is Sarah. She says she needs to speak to you. Marcus was intrigued. Send her in. Sarah was young, maybe 23. She was still in her stratosphere uniform, but she was clutching her trench coat to her chest as if for protection. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, and she was visibly shaking. Mr. Thorne, she whispered, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm Sarah. I was the junior flight attendant in the main cabin. Marcus softened his expression, motioning to a chair. It's all right, Sarah. Please sit down. Are you okay? She shook her head, tears welling up again. No, I'm not. What I saw, it was monstrous. I wanted to say something. I wanted to stop her. But Brenda, she was so vindictive. She writes our reviews. If you cross her, you're on reserve for a year. I was scared. I was a coward. And I am so sorry. You were in an impossible position, Marcus said gently. You're not the one who needs to apologize. But I do, Sarah insisted. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her company-issued tablet. I'm not just here to apologize. I'm here because, well, I'm probably fired anyway for being here, but you need to see this. She opened an internal messaging app used by the flight crews. Brenda, she's a known problem. We all know it. She has a type she profiles. She thinks non-revenue passengers or people who don't look the part are trash. She sends out warnings to the rest of the crew. She found a message thread from that morning, time-stamped just minutes after Marcus had boarded. It was from Brenda Lansing to Jeffrey Miller and the rest of the crew. Watch the guy in 1A, tracksuit and attitude. Looks like he scammed a buddy pass. Probably tried to steal the good liquor. Don't give him any extra service. Let's make him understand he's not welcome." Marcus read the message, and his blood ran cold. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment mistake. It was premeditated, targeted, and coordinated discrimination. "She sent this before Caldwell even boarded," Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Yes, sir," Sarah whispered. "She had already decided to target you. Mr. Caldwell just gave her the excuse she wanted." Marcus looked at Maria on the video screen. "Maria, did you see this?" Maria's face was grim. "I see it." "Sarah, would you be willing to submit that as a sworn affidavit?" I'll lose my job," Sarah said. "You will," Marcus said, "because as of Monday, Stratosphere Airlines will cease to exist. But I'm founding a new airline, Helios Airways, from its ashes, and I'll need a new head of in-flight service training. Someone who understands, fundamentally, what not to do. Someone who has integrity. Would you be interested in that job, Sarah?" Sarah's jaw dropped. "Sir, head of training? I don't reward cowards," Marcus said, his voice firm but not unkind. "But I do reward people who, in the end, choose to do the right thing, even when it's hard. You came here. You brought evidence. You put your career on the line. That's the kind of person I want building my new company. The job is yours if you want it." Sarah burst into tears, a flood of relief and shock. Yes, Mr. Thorne, thank you. I won't let you down." "Good," Marcus said. He turned back to the screen. "Robert, Maria, this message is the smoking gun. This isn't just a PR crisis. It's a federal crime. It's a violation of the Air Carrier Access Act. This is a pattern and practice of discrimination. The renegotiation stands. $3.2 billion. My price is final, and I own this problem now." Marcus had what he needed. He had a witness, he had a new hire, and he had a smoking gun that had just saved him $1.23 billion. The karma for Brenda and Jeffrey was about to get much, much worse. The news cycle was brutal. Flight 722 and Bye Brenda were trending for 48 hours. The video of Caldwell's removal and the subsequent reports of the airline's stock plummeting were on every major network. But for the antagonists, the public humiliation was just the beginning. The real karma was systemic. Brenda didn't just lose her job, she became unemployable in the industry she had built her entire identity around. The terminated for cause was a black mark, but the reason was the killer. Gross misconduct, passenger discrimination, and violation of federal ACAA regulations. The aviation industry is small, and its HR departments talk. She applied to Delta. Her application was rejected in under an hour. She applied to United. She got an automated no. She tried applying for international carriers, Emirates, British Airways. The answer was the same. She was blacklisted. A month after the incident, Brenda was in her condo, a property now in foreclosure because she and her husband, a mid-level insurance adjuster, couldn't afford it on one salary. Her husband had left her, citing the humiliation. "You were always a snob, Brenda," he'd said, packing his bags, "but I never thought you were this stupid." She was forced to sell her car. 2 months later, she was stocking shelves on the night shift at a 24-hour convenience store, a 20-minute bus ride from her new, tiny apartment. She was bitter, chain-smoking on her breaks, telling the other employees how she used to fly to Paris for the weekend. They just rolled their eyes. Jeffrey's fall was quieter, but just as devastating. At 58, with 25 years of service, he was 3 years shy of full retirement. His for-cause termination vaporized his pension and his 401k matching. He lost millions in future earnings and benefits. He tried to sue Stratosphere for wrongful termination. He sat in a lawyer's office, a small-time personal injury attorney who was the only one who would even take his meeting. "Jeffrey," the lawyer said, "you have no case. You were a manager. You were on video. You were presented with a legal, paid-for ticket, and you chose to escalate the situation, threatening a passenger with law enforcement. You didn't de-escalate, you discriminated. And that's not even the worst part." "What's the worst part?" Jeffrey asked, his voice trembling. "The worst part is who you're fighting. You're not suing Stratosphere. The acquisition closed. You're suing Helios Airways. You're suing Marcus Thorne. His legal team is from Skadden Arps. They will countersue you for defamation and for your role in the $1.3 billion devaluation. They will bury you under legal fees until you, your children and your grandchildren are in debt. Take the severance they offered, which is nothing, and disappear." Jeffrey was forced to sell his home. He moved in with his sister in Ohio, a broken man, spending his days watching daytime TV, a ghost in his own life, haunted by the 5 minutes where he chose to be a coward instead of a leader. Arthur Caldwell's fate was the most public. Wells Fargo didn't just fire him, they made an example of him. The investigation was swift. His termination with cause was announced in a press release, citing a profound violation of our company's code of conduct and values. Losing his $8 million in options was just the start. The video, where he'd screamed his title and company name, made him toxic. No bank on Wall Street would touch him. His $10 billion portfolio was reassigned. His clients, disgusted by the video, applauded the move. The social fallout was just as bad. He was a member of an exclusive Connecticut country club. The board held an emergency meeting and voted to revoke his membership. His wife was mortified, hounded by the local press. She filed for divorce within 6 weeks, citing the public humiliation and the financial ruin he had brought upon their family. Caldwell, who had started his day complaining about a middle seat, was now a pariah with no job, no wife, and no social standing. He had demanded another man's seat, and in return, the world had taken everything of his. The 6 months that followed the Flight 722 incident were a brutal, blindingly fast crucible for the airline. Stratosphere was a toxic name, a verb synonymous with corporate discrimination. Marcus Thorne didn't just want to paint over the rust, he wanted to smelt the entire structure down and forge something new. The acquisition closed for the renegotiated $3.2 billion. The $1.3 billion Marcus had saved went directly into a new fund designated Project Phoenix, with a single purpose: the total eradication of the old culture. First came the purge. Robert Castillo was gone, as promised. But so was the entire C-suite he had hired. The head of HR, the head of in-flight services, the chief operations officer, all were summarily fired. Marcus's own team from Helios Aerospace, led by David Chen and Maria Flores, descended on the Stratosphere headquarters like a SEAL team, conducting a rapid, top-to-bottom audit of every single employee file. They found what Marcus suspected. Brenda Lansing's file was full of complaints from junior staff, all dismissed by her managers as personality conflicts. Jeffrey Miller had been passed over for promotion 3 times due to a lack of decisive leadership. The rot was deep. Then came the rebrand. Helios Airways was born. The old bland blue and white livery was replaced with a striking, deep midnight blue and silver. The logo was a stylized H that evoked a wing and a forward-moving arrow. Every plane was stripped and repainted. Every gate sign, every uniform, every cocktail napkin was burned and replaced. But the real change was happening in a series of rented-out convention centers. Marcus had grounded the entire airline, a move that cost $100 million a day for 72 hours. Every single one of the 10,000 remaining employees was required to attend a mandatory 8-hour recertification seminar. This seminar was the all-hands meeting to end all meetings, held in the largest hangar at JFK, in front of a gleaming new Boeing 787 painted in the new colors. Marcus Thorne stood on the stage, not in a suit, but in a simple, high-quality dark blue Henley and slacks, the new executive uniform. The atmosphere was thick with tension, fear, and skepticism. "Good morning," Marcus began, his voice echoing, calm and clear. "Welcome to the first day of Helios Airways, and my apologies for the aggressive scheduling. I see a lot of faces out there. You're scared. You're wondering if you still have a job. You're wondering if this is just a PR stunt. Let me be clear. This is not a PR stunt. This is a resurrection." He paced the stage. 6 months ago, I was on a stratosphere flight. Many of you have seen the video. I was in seat 1A, and I was treated like garbage. I was profiled, humiliated, and threatened with arrest by my own employees on my own plane, because I was a black man in a tracksuit. The silence was absolute. That, Marcus continued, was a symptom of a disease of arrogance, a disease of laziness, a culture that taught its people to judge a book by its cover, a culture that prioritized the illusion of luxury over the execution of service. Luxury is a failed concept. It's a velvet rope designed to make people feel bad. It's about exclusion. Helios Airways is not in the luxury business. We are in the premium business, and premium is about one thing and one thing only: execution. I don't care if a passenger is in 1A or 34E. I don't care if they're wearing a $5,000 suit or a $5 t-shirt. They paid for a ticket. They are our guests. And our job is to provide them with a flawless, respectful, and safe journey. That's it. That is the job. The old way of fawning over a platinum member while ignoring the person next to them is over. The old cliques, the seniority-based bullying, the "that's not my job" attitude. It is all over. He pointed to the crowd. In the coming weeks, every single one of you will be retrained. You will be taught to de-escalate, not to escalate. You will be taught to identify and dismantle your own biases. You will be taught the Helios way. And if you can't, or won't, learn it. The door is right there. We will give you a generous severance, and we will wish you well, but you will not work here. We will be a smaller, better airline, before we are a big, broken one. Am I clear? A nervous murmur of, "Yes, sir," rippled through the hangar. "Good," Marcus said, his tone softening. Now this new training program, it needed a leader. Someone who understood, intimately, what went wrong that day. Someone who saw the failure of culture firsthand. My team searched for months. We interviewed VPs from Singapore Airlines, from Emirates. None of them got it. They talked about enhanced service metrics. They didn't talk about humanity. He paused. So I looked closer to home. I found someone who was there that day. Someone who was junior and scared and knew what was happening was wrong, but was too terrified of the toxic culture to speak up. Someone who, after the fact, had the courage to come forward, to risk their job, to provide the evidence that proved this wasn't a mistake, but a pattern. This person, this junior attendant, designed our entire new service and training manual from scratch. It is my great honor to introduce the new head of all in-flight service and training for Helios Airways, Ms. Sarah Jenkins. A single spotlight hit the aisle. Sarah, in a sharp, elegant, new midnight blue uniform she had personally designed, walked toward the stage. A wave of shock and disbelief rolled through the crowd. The people who knew her, who saw her as a quiet junior, were dumbfounded. She joined Marcus on stage, her hands trembling slightly, and took the microphone. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice shaking but gaining strength. "He's right. I was a coward that day. I stood in the galley and I let Brenda and Jeffrey destroy a man's dignity because I was afraid of losing my job. That is my truth, and it is my shame." She looked out at her former colleagues. The old culture was built on fear. Brenda ruled by fear. The managers ruled by fear. And in that environment, the only thing that matters is protecting yourself. The customer doesn't matter. Respect doesn't matter. Only survival. That system is gone. The Helios way that I designed is built on a new principle: psychological safety. The safety to do the right thing. The safety to speak up. From now on, any employee, from a first-day hire to a 30-year veteran, can report any issue: a rude passenger, a problematic colleague, a biased manager, through a new, anonymous app directly to my office. And I promise you, I will handle it. We will protect our people, so our people can protect our customers. We are a team, not a hierarchy. We failed, Mr. Thorne. We will not fail again." She finished to stunned, then thunderous applause. It was a new day, and as Marcus returned to the podium to announce the new $50 million Helios Flight Academy partnership with HBCUs like Howard and Morehouse, a program designed to break the old boys club and build a diverse pipeline of pilots and executives, the real, final karmic bills were coming due. Arthur Caldwell's firing from Wells Fargo was just the first domino. He was terminated with cause, a designation that vaporized his $8 million in unvested options. His public disgrace made him radioactive. He tried to sue, claiming wrongful termination. Wells Fargo's lawyers responded by countersuing him for $50 million. The estimated cost of the brand damage his viral "I am a senior VP" rant had caused. He dropped the suit immediately. His wife, a prominent figure in Connecticut society, was humiliated. She filed for divorce, and the with cause termination meant his multi-million-dollar compensation package was no longer part of the community property. The judge was not sympathetic. He lost the house. He lost his social standing. His country club membership was, as predicted, revoked. 9 months after Flight 722, Arthur Caldwell was living in a rental condo in Stamford. He was trying to get a new job. He sat in the drab office of a small, third-tier private wealth firm. The managing partner, a man half his age, looked at his resume. "It's an impressive resume, Arthur. Wells Fargo, 20 years, big portfolio, but I got to be honest." The man leaned forward and typed Arthur Caldwell into Google. The first 10 results were all Wells Fargo exec fired, racist rant on plane, Flight 722. The man clicked the video. Caldwell's own enraged, florid face filled the screen. "You can't do this. I'll have your job." The partner clicked it off. We can't have this. Our clients, they value discretion. You're not discreet, Arthur. You're a meme." Caldwell, a man who once managed billions, was unemployable. He was reduced to cold calling his few remaining contacts, begging for consulting work, a ghost of Wall Street haunting his own past. Jeffrey's fate was one of quiet, agonizing irrelevance. His termination, just shy of his 30-year pension, was a financial death sentence. He lost everything. His home in New Jersey was foreclosed on. His wife left him, not with a bang, but with a whimper of, "I just can't look at you, Jeffrey. You were weak." He moved to a small town outside Cleveland, Ohio, into the spare bedroom of his older sister's house. He was there, on a small, grainy 32-inch television in his sister's living room, when the Helios Airways all-hands meeting was covered on the news. He watched, his mouth agape, as Marcus Thorne spoke, and then he watched as Sarah Jenkins, young, quiet Sarah, who he hadn't even known by name, just the new girl, was introduced as the head of all in-flight service, a vice president, his boss's boss's boss. "Honey," his sister called from the kitchen, "you want tuna salad or egg salad for lunch?" Jeffrey stared at the screen, at the powerful, confident woman Sarah had become. He, the purser, the manager, the man who was supposed to be in charge, had been erased from the story. He had chosen to be a coward to protect his title, and in doing so had lost his title, his career, his home, and his name. He was a non-entity. "Tuna," he whispered to the empty room, tears of regret rolling silently down his cheeks. "Tuna's fine." Brenda's karma was the most direct. She was blacklisted, fired for cause, with a federal ACAA violation on her record. No airline would touch her. Her husband, finding himself married to a viral villain and facing a mountain of debt, left. She lost her condo. She lost her car. She lost her identity. She was, for the first time in her life, a nobody. 1 year after Flight 722, she was working the graveyard shift at a 24-hour Circle K in a rough neighborhood near LaGuardia Airport. It was 3 a.m. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting a sickly green pall over the dusty aisles. Brenda, her blonde hair now a dull, stringy grey-brown, was listlessly wiping down the grimy coffee counter. Her uniform was a cheap, stained red polo, too tight, with a plastic Brenda name tag pinned to it. The bell on the door chimed. Brenda didn't look up. "Be with you in a minute," she muttered. "It's okay. Take your time." Brenda froze. She knew that voice. She looked up slowly, her heart turning to ice. Sarah Jenkins stood there. She was in her immaculate, bespoke Helios Airways uniform, her silver head of service wings gleaming. She wasn't alone. 3 other new hire flight attendants were behind her, all in the same sharp uniform, laughing and grabbing bottles of water and snacks. "You guys get the van started," Sarah told them with a warm, easy smile. "I'll get these." She approached the counter and placed 4 bottles of Fiji water, a bag of pretzels, and a pack of gum down. Her eyes met Brenda's. The world stopped. In that one silent moment, the entire universe reversed. Here was Sarah, the picture of success, in the uniform Brenda used to wear, but 1,000 times more powerful. And here was Brenda, the queen of first class, reduced to a convenience store clerk, serving the junior attendant she had terrorized. Brenda's hands were shaking. She couldn't speak. All her rage, her bitterness, her sneering superiority, it all crumbled, leaving only a vast, empty chasm of shame. That'll be 1845, Brenda stammered, her voice a dry croak. Sarah didn't smirk. She didn't make a speech. She simply tapped her corporate Helios Airways credit card on the reader. The machine beeped. Approved. She gathered the items. Then she paused and looked at Brenda, her expression not one of triumph, but of simple, final finality. "Have a good night, Brenda," she said, her voice neutral, before turning and walking out the door to her waiting team, her new life. Brenda Lansing watched her go, then sank against the cigarette display, burying her face in her hands. She had spent her life deciding who belonged, and now she was the one who was truly and forever on the outside. 2 weeks later, Marcus Thorne was on the inaugural Helios Airways flight from New York to London. He was, as always, in 1A. He was in his trademark tracksuit. A young man, barely 21, nervously settled into 1B. He was black, wearing a Duke University sweatshirt and clutching his backpack. He looked at the lie-flat pod, at the amenity kit, at Marcus, and looked completely, wonderfully terrified. As he was fumbling with his seatbelt, an older white man in 2C leaned forward. "Son," he said, not unkindly, but with an air of assumption. "You know this is first class, right? The main cabin is that way." The young man flushed red. "Oh, no, sir. My ticket. It says 1B. Before Marcus could even open his mouth, the new lead flight attendant, a man named Paul, stepped in. His smile was instant and bright. "He's exactly where he's supposed to be, sir," Paul said to the man in 2C, with a voice that was both polite and absolutely firm. He then turned his full, undivided attention to the student. "Mr. Leo Washington, a very warm welcome aboard Helios Airways. My name is Paul. I'll be your purser. Can I get you a pre-departure beverage? Our signature ginger limeade is fantastic, and please let me show you how this seat works. It can be a little complicated, but it's very comfortable." Paul spent the next 2 minutes patiently showing Leo the controls, making him feel not just welcome, but expected. The man in 2C simply read his paper. Marcus watched, a deep, satisfied smile on his face. This was the new culture. This was execution. He leaned over to the student. "First time in a pod?" "Yes, sir," Leo said, his eyes wide. "My grandmother. She passed away and left me just enough money for a last adventure before I start my new job. I feel so out of place." "You're never out of place where you're meant to be," Marcus said. "What's the new job?" "I'm an engineer, sir. Just graduated. I'm starting at Lockheed Martin." "Aerospace, huh?" Marcus smiled. "Tough field. I know a little something about it." You do?" Marcus handed him his card. "Marcus Thorne, CEO, Helios Airways." Leo's jaw dropped. "Wait, you're that Marcus Thorne from the incident?" Marcus laughed. "The very same, but look." He pointed to Paul, who was now helping another passenger. That is the Helios way. That's what we built from it. Leo, that job at Lockheed. You work there for 1 year. You learn everything they have to teach you. Then you call the number on the back of that card. I'll have a better job waiting for you. The future of this industry, it needs to look a lot more like you and me." The 787's engines hummed to life. As the plane taxied to the runway, Marcus Thorne fastened his seatbelt, looked out the window, and for the first time in a long time felt the deep, profound satisfaction of a culture not just changed, but reborn. In the end, karma isn't just about revenge, it's about restoration. Brenda, Jeffrey, and Caldwell didn't just lose their jobs. They were brought low by the very prejudice and arrogance they used as weapons. Their lives were dismantled, piece by piece, as a direct consequence of their actions. But the real story is what Marcus Thorne built from the ashes. He didn't just punish the guilty, he rebuilt the entire system to reward the good. He tore down a culture of exclusion, and in its place, built an empire of execution and opportunity, ensuring that no one else would ever be made to feel like they didn't belong. What did you think of this story of instant, hard-hitting karma? Who do you think got the worst of it? Brenda, Jeffrey, or Mr. Caldwell? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you love stories where the arrogant finally get what they deserve, be sure to like this video, share it with a friend, and smash that subscribe button for more real-life drama every single week.